Resident Evil 4 was a game loved by many, and just like any other Resident Evil game, it's filled with a ton of material that never made it into the original game. With that being said, here is all the cut content from Resident Evil 4. An enemy known as the Arcanist went through at least 2 different designs before being rejected. In both designs, it has 3 heads and 2 pairs of hands per arm. In the first design, it wears a white robe with black iconography. In its right arm is a forked tentacle which can spray gas. The second design has no such tentacle and its robes have switched colors, but the iconography is the same. The assassin Bear Claw Man was to appear in the castle stage of the game. The design suggests a shirtless Ganado wearing a black mask, an arm with long claws attached to its arms. Ultimately, the designs for this and the armored Ganado were merged to create the Garrador mini-boss. The Bound Slave was intended to appear around both the castle and the island stage. It was looked at as a man in ragged, Arabic-style clothes. This unnamed Ganado appears as a woman in a skin-tight shroud inspired by an Arabic dress, the only sign of her affiliation being the tentacles on her right arm, which have replaced her hand. This unnamed female Ganado appears in a similar dress to a medieval Harlequin and carries a sword resembling a medieval Flamberg with shortened length. The mouth-hidden type was to be a variant of the low-ranking plain black-clad cultist, appropriately armed with a scythe. A distinction is that she has a cloth to hide her mouth, allowing only her eyes to be seen. The mask type was another female cultist design. She wears fine robes like high-ranking cultist, but has an ornate mask covering her face. The scythe carrier was a high-ranking cultist wearing a ram skull helmet and black robes. He carries a scythe with him. The Super Dynamite Man was intended to appear somewhere in the castle stage to serve as a suicide bomber. He appears to be dressed like the villagers, suggesting he may be one of the miners. He is wearing a vest holding dynamite and has a torch in one hand, which he has used to ignite another 2 sticks stuck to his head. The tattooed type is a high-ranking cultist. He wears the special robes worn by the other commanders, however his sleeves are removed to display his arm tattoos. He wears a skull like other commanders, but this is a bovine skull rather than a goat's. The Torchbearer was a cultist wearing fine robes and wearing a ram skull helmet, evidently a high-ranking member. He carries a torch rather than any weapon. The armored Ganado was a prototype to the Garrador enemy. The first design appears very similar with its helmet design, however it does not have claws and its eyes haven't been stitched. An interesting design choice was to mark the Los Illuminados insignia onto the breastplate. The second design was an older and bulkier style of armor, with the entire face being hidden from view by the helmet. The breastplate appears to allow the addition of leg plates to form a pre-30 Years War suit of armor, but the Ganado does not use them. Biohazard 4 was the name of a cancelled entry to the Resident Evil series. It was later revamped and released as Devil May Cry in 2001. The story was based on unraveling the mystery surrounding the protagonist Tony Redgrave and his twin brother Paul Redgrave, the sons of Oswald E. Spencer. Tony maintains a human form but possesses superior skills and intellect. The story was likely set in the future. The story was to be focused on Mallet Island, home to the Umbrella facility. Some aspects of Biohazard 4 did make their way into the release version of the game. For example, the Novistador enemy was based on the Beelzebub. In keeping with like the Novistadors, Beelzebubs appear to have flying and non-flying variations. Castle is a nickname for the early version of Resident Evil 4, which existed from 2001 to 2002. Other nicknames for the game included the Fog version, Mist, and the Airship version. The game's main plot was to resolve around Leon S. Kennedy, who was conscripted into the US Army following his experiences in Resident Evil 2. Now a soldier within the elite anti-Umbrella pursuit and investigation team, he participates in a raid on the castle of Dr. Oswald E. Spencer, where Umbrella HQ is located. The operation goes wrong when the squad encounters Black Fog, a BOW sent by HCF as part of their own attack. The sole survivor, Leon, is infected with a retrovirus and must resist his body's mutation. During his exploration of the castle, Leon runs into a young woman who was the subject to experimentation in their lab and is protected by a BOW dog companion. Leon's investigation uncovers the remains of an ancient underground civilization below the castle where the progenitor virus was isolated within the body of its superhuman king, revealing Umbrella Pharmaceuticals' existence as a tool for Lord Spencer to achieve immortality. The Hallucination version is the internal name given to a 2003 build of Resident Evil 4. Hallucination was the second build of the game after the Castle version, not counting the earlier Resident Evil 4 project which became Devil May Cry. Gameplay footage of this version was featured in the Biohazard 4 secret DVD. Both Castle and Hallucination were scrapped due to technical limitations which would have cost too much to resolve. The game featured hallucinations which caused Leon to have to face hallucinatory enemies like possessed dolls and the Hookman creature. The zombie version is the term given to the third stage of the Resident Evil 4 development cycle. Little information is known about this intended setting of this game, as no concept art is shown to have been made. What is known is that there was to be a new type of enemy referred to as Dabamen. Soon after the project began, producer Shinji Mikami dismissed the zombie project. The Dabamen were later recycled and became the Ganados we all know and love. The Black Fog is the name of a creature which was planned to appear in Resident Evil 4 during its 2002 castle stage of development, but was eventually cut. The creature was intended to be created using a new virus developed by HCF and responsible for Leon S. Kennedy's infection when both US agents and the HCF had infiltrated Oswald E. Spencer's castle. The enemy was dropped when it was realized that the level of animation needed to make this creature appear realistic was not possible on the GameCube. The Electric Man is a creature designed for Resident Evil 4, but was later abandoned in early development. The Lurching Man is a creature designed for Resident Evil 4, but ultimately was never used. It was the prototype for the Regenerator enemy. It was to have the ability to change its form. The Amethyst Stone is a key item which intended to appear in the Shinji Mikami version of Resident Evil 4. It was removed in the last few months of development along with the ONYX Stone. It can be found in the coding of the trial version of the game. Parasite humans are rejected enemy creature designs from Resident Evil 4. It is possible that they were prototype versions for the Ganado enemies. There is a genetic parasite human design and another batch of 8 unique designs, as well as female variations. Shown here are the many designs of the parasite humans. As seen, most of these designs include multiple eyes and elongated limbs. The Parasite Woman was an intended enemy for Resident Evil 4. 4 pieces of concept art are known to exist of them. The first, labeled A-Type, is bound in a straitjacket. One of her arms has grown to enormous lengths. It would appear that her design was reused for the Havo in Resident Evil 6. The second has no arms at all. Her head has mutated into a sharp-toothed monster instead. The third is an unbound woman in a tattered dress, armed with a shotgun. The final design merges the earlier designs, an unbounded woman with 2 inhuman arms growing next to the normal ones, while a monster's face projects from the side of her head. The creature's straitjacket concept shares an uncanny resemblance to Lisa Trevor. Tony Redgrave is a character who was intended to appear in Biohazard 4 as the main protagonist. In his backstory, he was intended to be a police officer and the son of Dr. Oswald E. Spencer. When the game was revamped and became Devil May Cry, his name changed from Tony to Dante. In the Shinji Mikami design for Resident Evil 4, Leon was also supposed to be able to obtain a silencer in Resident Evil 4 that would be able to be combined with any handgun but the Red 9 and Matilda. Another separate silencer was also to be used with the TMP. For some reason it was removed from the main game, however it ended up being used in Wesker's loadout in the Resident Evil 4 Mercenaries minigame and appears to be combined to his handgun by default. In the recent VR version of Resident Evil 4, the game removed a ton of offensive and flirtatious dialogue towards women in the game. Flirty dialogue between Leon and Hunnigan had been removed in one scene. The actual words that are missing are very few, and the only one of any consequence earlier in the game is a line in the original, where Leon states he thought Hunnigan would be older. While these changes do have some implications for the relationship between Leon and the relatively minor character Hunnigan, they bear no greater implications for the plot of Resident Evil 4. Furthermore, there is a line where Louise comments on Ashley's melons and the camera lingers on her chest for a moment has also been removed. Players can also no longer attempt to look up Ashley's skirt either. The specifics of the other dialogue changes are still being confirmed as players make their way through the game, as the cut content is so minor. Game modes such as Mercenaries mode, Assignment Ada, and others are missing in the VR version, likely due to the same reasons. And there you have it, that is all of the cut content from Resident Evil 4. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.